message. And yeah, today's message is Imams, Kings, and the Ottoman seizure of Massawa. Yeah, we about to get into it. The Red Sea struggle for Ethiopia. Get you something to write on, something to write with. And I hope all is well wherever you are. And I hope you're doing well. But yeah, we about to get into it. And we are in the book. We are in the book, the Ethiopians: A History by Richard Pankhurst. Yeah, get something to write on, something to write with, and take some notes because we're gonna deal with Massawa. That is a small Red Sea port with a great history. So for centuries, it was Ethiopia's window to the sea, a channel of trade, a place of faith and empire. But in the 1500s, everything started to change. This city became the stage for one of the most dramatic struggles in Ethiopian history. We have Imams, we have kings, and even the Ottomans collided there. So, in a clash, and in that clash, the result became a reshape, not just say for Ethiopia, but for the eastern seaboard of Africa. So, we're going to get into chapter 5 of Richard Pankhurst's book, The Ethiopians: The History, and it goes right into jihad. It goes right into rulership and the empire. So uh like I said, you you're at the right place at the right time to learn something new, and we all going to learn something new together, right? So today, the question is, how did Imam Ahmad Grāñ campaign nearly bring the Ethiopian kingdom to a collapse? And what role did foreign weapons and alliances play? Yeah, we're gonna get into that. Yeah, because there were some other people laying in wait, chilling in the cut, trying to see what was going to happen as usual, right? And why was Massawa such a critical prize for the Ottomans? And how did control of the Red Sea shape Ethiopia's survival? And here's another question: what ways Ethiopian kings like Menes and Sarsa Dengel, and we may not get to Sarsa Dengel, but we're going to talk about Menes, how they resist both internal betrayal and external Ottoman pressure. And what does this struggle between Imams, kings, and the Ottomans reveal about Ethiopia's place in a global 16th century world? What happens is when we talk about the Middle Ages and even all the way up until the 15 to 1600s, we hyper focus on Europe. That's what we do. All right. We hyper focus on Europe as if nothing else is happening. A lot of things have been happening in and around Africa, and we're going to get into it, right? So today, we're going to talk about the rise of Imams, the kings respond, betrayals and alliances, the Ottoman seizure of Massawa, the legacy of struggle, and I may have a bonus. You know how I do it. I may have a bonus. You see what I'm saying? So yeah. Here we go. This is our Ethiopia Christian Kemet for those who are new, for those who don't understand what this podcast is about. This is our primary focus. All right. Ethiopia Christian Kemet along the Nile Valley. And we have 4 Ujumbe pillars. Pillar 1 is Ethiopia, the source and the sanctuary. Pillar 2, Kemet, the blueprint of sacred civilization. Pillar number 3, Kush and Nubia, the corridor of continuity. Number 4, the hidden code, spiritual science, symbols, and esoteric legacy of Africa. Check this out. This I believe falls under pillar number 1, Ethiopia. All right. So we're gonna talk about the rise of Imams. All right, the rise of Imams, and of course, I got the book. Yeah, I got the book. So, dealing with that. It's chapter 5. It says the first decades of the 16th century constituted another major turning point for Ethiopian history. 3 major events took place in this period in the east, south, and north, respectively. First, the power of the Shawa-based Christian monarchy, which had once advanced, as we discussed before, and then it almost came to the point of destruction by the increasingly well-armed Islamic and Muslim rulers of Adal. There was a clash of ideologies and a clash of kingdoms and rulership, and it was restored, of course, with great difficulty. So we have the Christian kingdom there, Shawa-based Christian monarchy. Number two. Secondly, the escalating pressures from a people of the South, the Oromos people coming from the South, better known as the Galas. And then thirdly, we have Massawa, the empire's principal port in the north. Was seized by the Ottoman Turks, who were to remain in occupation for the next 3 centuries. With all that infighting that was going on, with all these issues and skirmishes that was going on, here come a foreigner that's gradually moving towards our land, okay, and setting up shop, and not just for months or years, but according to the book, 3 centuries. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Let's get it. So we have Imam Mahfouz and the conflict with Adal, right? So the last years of the 15th century witnessed the intensification of the old commercial religious struggle between Christian Empire and the Muslim Emirate Adal. Both sides had long been concerned with control of the trade route. It's always going to be about money. It's always going to be about whoever has the gold make the rules. So even in Ethiopia, there was a concern with the finances, the financial upbringing of that country and that nation. See what I'm saying? Yes, Ethiopia is a major religious hub. Yes, it has a lot of history. Yes, it has all the things. But at the root of it, when there's major skirmishes involved, there's always some money involved. All right, let's go. So we have the Christian nation, the Christian empire, and the Muslim emirate. Both sides was concerned about who controlled the trade ports, because the trade ports opened them up to the Eastern world, which was India, right? And shout out to Basil Davidson, Lost Cities of Africa. We had the discussion about that, and we may get into this a little bit later. Let's go. So this trade was by the early 16th century all the more important on account of the increasing significance of firearms. Yeah, they not just throwing hands anymore. They're not using swords and shields anymore. They got the blickety. They got they got something hot for them. Yeah, and I got a question, fam. Before we go further, do you think that by introducing firearms in these nations, do you think that this would be the catalyst that Europe and everybody else need? And the thing is, we've seen this before, haven't we? We've seen this before. I know I'm jumping the gun, but we've seen this before, how they just drop weapons off. They just drop drugs and all these things off in our community and just walk away. And what do? Get into it over some moot point or some weird ideology. Yeah. We got to be smarter than this, y'all. We got to do better. And so they was concerned about the trade. They was concerned about the weapons, gold and silver, which could be attained by the rulers of the Amorite far more easily than by those of the formerly almost overwhelmingly powerful interior. So the seaports was able to get access to the materials quicker than anybody else. They were the plug, right? Yeah, they had it. They had it. So because of that, conflict ensued between the Christian nation and the Adal, the Empire of Adal. What happened? It happened in the year 1490. It happened in the 1490s when the able warrior and charismatic Muslim religious leader called Mahfouz arose in the east. He was a leader of the rich port of Zayla. I think I have it. Let me see here. I have my handy map here. And to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Zayla is right here. That is a major port of Adal. And the Sultan had all of this. So you see rivers, you see the major cities, you see the trade routes there. right? And so he was a ruler of the rich poor Zayla and the principal commander of the Emir Muhammad Adal. Okay, Mahfuz uh, was in contact with Sharif Barakat, the Emir of Mecca. So he had close encounters and close communication with Mecca. So if anything goes wrong or if anything goes left, all he has to do is send a letter, and then Mecca brings down bring down reinforcement. But notice, this was the 1500s, right? Look at the map. There's different kingdoms and rulers and clans in Ethiopia at this time. So in each one of them, and I know we don't have time to explore every last one of them, not right now anyway, but it is amazing to realize that there were some great and powerful kingdoms all in one place. We have the Byzantine lands in the north, the Funj kingdom towards the Habasha, all right, Habasha, right, and then the Sultanate of Dengel, Afar. This their shout out to the Afar fam. Then we have the Luo clan down there in the south, the Kingdom of Kaffa, Oromo Confederation, Ajadan Sultanate, and the Ottoman Empire up in the northeast. Yeah, and this is all in the Horn of Africa right here. Great and powerful kingdoms. All of them had militaries. All of them had money. All of them had their own ways and means of leadership and how they governed their people. But they trying to expand. They trying to go big or go home, right? And so so he had the Imam Mahfuz. He had connections with Mecca, right? And he adopted later on Mahfuz. He would adopt the title of Imam. This designation was important. It was important, and it symbolized his claim to religious leadership, and in effect committed himself to a jihad or a holy war or a struggle. Okay, Mahfuz is said to have undertaken no less than 25 annual raids into the Christian highlands of Sawa. So he regularly invaded the northern plains. He was always on their neck. Okay, and not just the highlands of Sawa, but Amhara or even Fatagar. According to the author, these operations were generally carried out inland. So we got man. I'm about to get into this later on, but the thing is, we try to, when it come down to different philosophies and ideology and everything, one group would try to amplify that there was more righteous than the other, whereas and vice versa. Whereas we have right here an imam that is raiding and invading Christian nations during Lent. It's a bad look, but it's history. We got to talk about it, right? So he invaded. These operations were carried out during Lent when the Christians had been weakened by their long fast and were dispersed with their families. Yeah, and such. This was happening constantly and regularly all the way up until the end of 1517 when the Emperor Lebna Dengel brought his soldiers to battle. And we'll talk about him in a second, but yeah, we even had a time when the Imam visited Lalilibela. Yeah, he did. He visited Lalilibela, and we talked about the rock-hewn churches, the ancient churches of Lalilibela. During this time, the emperor, nothing was off limits to him. If it was not on his side, his team, he actually invaded those churches. But we'll get to that in a second. But now, and so this happened. Imam challenged. He challenged any Christian warrior to fight to a duel with him unto the death, a monk called Gebra Andreas at once offered to do so. And they fought, which ended in victory for the monk, but who killed Mahfuz. Yeah, we had a warrior monk step in and handle business. Yeah. He said, look, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of you raiding our villages and everything. You got to go. Yeah, so Imam Mahfuz, he was taken out by a monk, right? But meanwhile, while this was happening, the Portuguese was coming in. While all this infighting was happening, here come the little Portuguese, the Portuguese. Yeah. They according to the book, they was in their first diplomatic mission. You know when they're on a diplomatic mission, they're not trying to they ain't trying to exercise no kind of diplomacy. They was trying to figure out what they all had. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this happened. Portuguese because if it was a diplomatic mission, how come they seized ports? How come they took over ports, the African port of Kilwa on the Indian Ocean coast, south of Ethiopia in 1505, and then they seized and taken over the island of Socotra beyond the eastern mouth of the Red Sea. So they were gradually taking over these seaports. They weren't just there for a prayer meeting. Yeah, they was there. They was there to set up shop. Yeah, and so in the course of these developments, two Portuguese envoys, Fernão Gomes or Gomes and João Sanchez, arrived in Ethiopia from the East African port of Melindi in 1508. Emperor Naud had died one short time earlier. So they came in just in time to finesse. King is gone. The king is gone. Let me get up there. The king is gone. Now they have the best opportunity to take some kind of control. And a young ruler named Lebna Dengel this area was governed by him, and he was a regent, and he was a regent for Empress Ilani, the widow of Zara Yaqub, and the daughter of the Muslim ruler Hadaya in the southwest. So Empress Ilani became who was the daughter of a Muslim ruler, had became Christian on marrying into the Christian royal family. So she therefore, because of that, she adopted the policy of previous Ethiopian rulers in seeking alliance with a Christian European power instead of an African one. That is already a setup. Okay. Instead of uniting with other African nations around her, she decided to contact Europe. Yeah. She accordingly dispatched Matthew, an Armenian merchant, in her service on a diplomatic mission to the Portuguese in India in 1512. So the Portuguese was they weren't at their back door. They was already in the house. Yeah. And so while this diplomacy, while this exchange of information was happening, then we have the Imam Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi. Okay, Imam Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi, Ahmad Grāñ, or the left-handed. Yeah, so basically in the highlands, in the valleys of the Horn of Africa during the 16th century, these civilizations were thriving and they were struggling for renewal and survival. We had the Christian Empire, and of course we had the Muslim Empire. And here come at the heart of this was Imam Ahmad. I'm sorry. And so he's very powerful, and he was a great reformer, and he was a defender of his faith, who of Islam, who nearly brought down the mightiest Christian kingdom in Africa. So meanwhile, while the empress is having conversations with Christian Portuguese and them, this guy here is setting up shop. Okay, all right. So he rose to power. Most likely, he started his beginnings, according to some sources. He gained power through near Harar. The city was a major hub of Islamic scholarship and trade. Little is known about his childhood, but by the 1520s, Ahmad had risen to prominence within the Adala Sultanate, which lay to the east of Ethiopia, and included parts of present-day Somalia, Djibouti, and eastern Ethiopia. So that would also probably include, let me see, that may include Yemen. You see what I'm saying? And so the Adal Sultanate was under pressure, and it faced constant border conflicts with the expanding Christian Ethiopian Empire with the help of the Europeans. They ruled at a time by when Lebna, he became that ruler. He became that guy. So we had the empress that was cool and sent information and communication to Christian European nations, but then later on, Lebna took over. Okay, and so it was also caught in a larger geopolitical currents when the Ottoman got engaged. So we had Adal, who was part of the Sultanate in an African nation, but the Ottoman, which was an Eastern group, came in. And then we had the Portuguese, the West. Ahmad's rise came in a moment of crisis with his charisma and religious devotion and military skill. He became a leading commander of Adal's forces soon he became Imam. And so in the book, there wasn't just one incursion. There wasn't just one battle. It was a series of issues and incursions. So he overthrew. And so some people say he rose to power, but how did he rise to power? He rose to power by taking somebody out. Yeah, he overthrew the Sultan Abu Bakr of Harar. So he was born and raised in Harar. So he overthrew him, thus making himself the master of that rich Muslim walled commercial city and assuring him the possibility of acquiring a significant number of what? Guess what? Firearms. Not swords and shields. He was trying to get those weapons. And it was imported. Though essentially a soldier, Ahmad was also, of course, a religious leader. He followed Mahfuz's example, the one who was taken out by a Christian monk. He followed Mahfuz's example by adopting the religious title of Imam, and no less significantly, he married the daughter Bati Della Wanbara. He then gained the support of her father's followers, who were committed to continuing this battle. Okay, and so his life, of course, made a great impact in the eastern realm, in the eastern world of Ethiopia, and he made a great impact, be it positive or negative, for Ethiopia as a nation. And of course, the people that chronologized this, who wrote this, it was written. It was called the Futa al-Habasha, or the history of the conquest of Abyssinia, written in Arabic by the victorious warriors Yamani historian. His name was Shihab ad-Din Ahmad ibn Abdel al-Qatar. Okay. Basically, he had somebody writing about those battles and how he overcame and how he won. I told you, got to tell your own story, right? So he did. And he began these conflicts in 1527 as the Futa reports, by ordering the Muslim towns of Adal to refrain from paying tribute customarily due to it. So I told you this battle was these wars was money. Basically, he told his people to stop paying the taxes to Christian Ethiopia. And the emperor said, hold on. How come they ain't paying their money? So what they're going by in result, the ruler, um, the emperor, Lebna Dengel responded by ordering his governor of Bali to march to Adal, but the Imam defeated him decisively at the Battle of Adir. So the emperor sent some representatives to get that money. Imam said no. They were like, yeah, you should. He was like, no. So they fought. So after that, Imam Ahmad he undertook series of expeditions, which took him much further westward, into the highlands than his father-in-law Mahfuz. So this was not only he was trying to solidify his city and his country or his nation, he was trying to expand. I told you they was trying to expand. And so in the course of these operations, Ahmad captured innumerable slaves, many of whom he dispatched as gifts to the Muslim ruler Zabdid in South Arabia. So yeah, they did engage in slavery, but we have to understand that they was basically prisoners of war, not in a sense of slavery as the Western world will see it. But you guys can like and or dislike. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, so after several years of raids and fighting, Ahmad fought a major battle with the emperor in March of 1529 at Shembera Kore, literally the swamp of chickpeas. Okay, and the emperor was defeated. Yeah, Emperor Lebna Dengel was defeated, and his men suffered immense casualties. Yeah. By then, the Adal had a major stronghold in Ethiopia, and the emperor had to back off, right? So Imam had at about this time finally decided to embark on the conquest of Christian Ethiopia. So he pushed even more into Ethiopia. And then in 1531, there was a battle of Antukaya in 1531 by the Lake Hayek. The Imam began to engage. He began the engagement by ordering these men to fire cannons. So they not only had guns, they had cannons. And these people weren't ready for it. Yeah. This was new weapons, and the emperor's men, they, according to the book, they fled, they ran. I would have too. Yeah. And so he observed that the Turks, out of their hatred to Christianity, had supplied the Imam this. So the Turks of the Ottoman Empire gave weapons to an African leader to fight other Africans with. Cannons. Yeah. So by the summer of 1532, the Imam's well-armed troops had overrun almost all of Ethiopia's eastern and southern provinces. Among them was Daro, Bali, Hadaya, Gans, Waj, Fatgar, and Ifat. Yeah. Yeah. He was playing no games. And because of that, I think it put it set a message, okay, to Ethiopia and the rest of the world that these imams weren't playing. Not only that, the Ottoman Empire was paying attention, and don't forget, the Portuguese was paying attention. Yeah. Yeah. They was looking and they was lurking. Yeah. So far, if you're enjoying the content, like and subscribe so you don't miss anything, because we're about to go a little bit further into detail with this. But yeah, if you are enjoying this information, if you want to know more about Ethiopia, Kush, and Kemet, like and subscribe. All right, let's get it. So yeah, the kings responded. you know they weren't taking it. They weren't taking that airline down. You know they weren't. You know the emperor has something up his sleeve. See what I'm saying? You know they you know he wasn't playing with it. He said, "Look, I told you to run me my money." So yeah, Emperor Lebna Dengel or Dawit II, he had to strategize. He had to think. And so what happened is, I'm sorry, I'm going ahead, but yeah, what happened is so remember, this was a military struggle, a physical struggle, but also the Imam brought in religious individuals right behind them. I forgot to bring up that point. Okay. After the Imam's spectacular early victories, large numbers of apparently staunch Christians adopted to Islam, conversion which appeared to have been mainly opportunistic because the ones that had the power had the trade routes, right? So the Imam was passionately interested in conversion. His armies were accompanied by religious zealots who actively sought newly occupied areas so they could set up shop. Conversions, as indicated by Shahab ad-Din, were, however, also many instances based on force or the threat thereof. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So there were some people that were converted under duress. Their hands were tied. They couldn't do anything. Under such pressure, many entire communities converted. Okay. And so, but a lot of them, like the Jan Shalak, that group had not embraced Islam and they hid themselves in the desert. Yeah. 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 And then and they say, okay, so if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to convert, we're just going to raise your taxes because you don't believe the same way we do. Yeah, they called it jizya, 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 or tax on infidels. Do you think that's fair? Okay, like and comment. Let me know. Do you think it's fair for one group to tax or add more burden to you because you don't see it the same way as they do? Like and comment. Let me know because because they're trying to low key force them to convert through finances by straining their pockets. Yeah, let me know. Let me know. All right. So yeah, it's a little different, and so they did, and like I said before, they did go to Lalibela and they did pillage Lalibela. They took, according to the church of Atronza Miriam and an adjacent storehouse, according to the Muslim writer, were pillaged from midday until the following morning. The loot, which was carried off both by porters and on mules, included rich brocade velvets and silks, gold, silver, and heaps, gold and silver cups, plates and censers, and a gold mambara tabot. That is a mambara tabot is a container for the tabot or the symbolic representation of the Ark of the Covenant. They went in there and raided Lalibela. Yeah, yeah, that's what they did. This is history. And I think this is a sad portion of history because this reminds me of, say, the Moor invasion or the return of the Moors into West Africa. You see what I'm saying? About the same period of time when, say, the Moors ran out of Spain and they went back to West Africa, but they weren't the same as those people in West Africa, even though they looked the same, but they weren't the same. And fighting ensued, resulting in them paving the way for other European nations to come in. Same thing here in the eastern part of Africa, where we have an imam who believes in what he believes and wants to expand his kingdom, but at what cost? Because now we got Portuguese, we got Cristóvão da Gama's coming in. Why? Because Portuguese is cool with, they cool with the emperor. They cool with the Christian emperor. So the kings respond. So, all right, before I get to that though, real quick, just a reminder: the rise of Imams, the king's response, betrayals and alliances, and finally the Ottoman seizure of Massawa. And then the legacy of the struggle. Let's get it. So the kings responded. Remember, an Ethiopian king. Remember, according to Pankhurst, the monarchs of medieval Ethiopia stood like their predecessors at the apex of great hierarchy of state. The status of the ruler was defined in the Fetha Nagas, or the Law of Kings, enunciating divine right of kings. So whoever was a king or emperor of Ethiopia was backed by their own law, or the Fetha Nagas, right? So they had power. Ethiopian monarchs were theoretically endowed with immense power. They had a lot of pull, including diplomatic power. Yeah. Where they remember the empress already was in communication with Portugal. Now we have Dawit II doing the same thing, but at what cost, right? And so the authority rested in a large measure his ability to appoint and dismiss provincial and other officials virtually at will, as well as to transfer land to or from them at his pleasure. So they had the kings, the emperors of Ethiopia had power and authority, right? Well, this will soon be a problem, as I mentioned earlier, when there's invaders at the gates. And right now, we have two invaders at the gates. We have two. We have remember, we have the Ottoman Empire and Portuguese. These people are not your friend, right? And so this expansion, this communication led by Lebna Dengel and Dom Cristóvão da Gama, the son of the mariner Vasco da Gama, this dude from Portuguese brought 400 handpicked and particularly well-armed musketeers, and they landed in Massawa. This was not a diplomatic mission. This was not a peace conference. It was about to be a hostile takeover. And it began in February of 1541. And news of the coming of the Portuguese and their powerful military encampment spread rapidly through northern Ethiopia, and many soldiers who had sided with the Imam now abandoned him. People start switching up when they see another group with a different kind of firepower, a different kind of situation. They switch up because a lot of them was, remember, a few minutes before, a lot of them was forced to convert. So they heart wasn't in the first place. Yeah. And so they then, according to the book, they then proceeded westward to Dambeya, north of Lake Tana, where they confronted the Imam in April 1542. For the first time, his career encountered an enemy well equipped with cannons. Imam probably had one or two. These folk came with a lot of them, with a lot of cannons. Wounded in battle, Imam was wounded in battle. He had to retreat, but managed to send an urgent appeal to Zebdid and promised in return for renewed Turkish aid to become a vassal of the Ottoman Emperor Suleiman II. So when he retreated and he was able to gather himself, get himself together, he sent a communication to the Turks, to the Ottoman Empire, so they can help. So now we have two factions. One of the Christian Ethiopia, cool with Portuguese, right? Then we have Imam of the Adal, right? They're cool with the Ottoman Empire. Here they come. About to clash in one place. Wow. This is crazy. This is crazy. And so what happened is the battles ensued. People was wounded. People was killed. The long drawn out struggle between Imam Ahmad and the Christian Empire, one of the most traumatic in Ethiopia's millennia old history had taken a considerable toll of life and material and wealth. Yeah. Both sides, both African nations, they're gone. Brother against brother. Yeah, betrayals and alliances. So what happened to the Christian monarchy, which Amda Sayon and Zar Yaqub have forged, was almost destroyed. And though restored through fortitude of Emperor Galawidos, backed up by armed strength, the armed strength of the Portuguese had lost most of its former mystique. And then the Muslim Adal, the state of Adal, they almost collapsed too. These two very wealthy, very powerful nations could have been cool with just saying, hey, you live over there, we live over here. They both was at the brink of collapse because they wanted each other's stuff. They wanted each other's money and resources. And not only that, they brought in the Portuguese and they brought in the Ottoman Empire with more weapons and more destruction. Yeah. Both Christian and Islamic Ethiopia have been weakened due to the fighting. And guess what? The Portuguese, they could just go home. They good. The Ottomans, they can go back to where they was at. And Ethiopia is left with nothing but destruction. Wow. Yeah. This is history. We can't see. The thing is, we can't always talk about the Nile Valley and the victories and the gold and the wealth and all the wonderful things and symbolism and all that. Sometimes it gets nasty. Sometimes it gets bad, and we got to tell it. We got to tell it. You know, I think somebody one time said this was not a good book or whatever. I wonder why. Because it doesn't show it doesn't give a favorable assessment of Ethiopia. Well, it does overall, but there are some blemishes in our mother Ethiopia that we got to own up to. You know, we can't always talk about, you know, the victories of the civil rights movements and all that without discussing the crack epidemic. You understand? All of this is part of our existence. All of this is part of our culture, right? All right. So then we had, I'm sorry, the Oromo and then the Ottoman seizure of Massawa. I told you they was waiting. They was waiting. Of course, we had the Oromo people, Oromo migration. They moved in after the collapse. Okay. And then the Jesuits and the Ottomans occupied it. So the Jesuits came in, and so the Spanish religious divine Ignatius of Loyola, who had founded the Society of Jesus in 1534, was greatly interested in reports by the Portuguese. So he went down there, and he fought the Imam, and then guess what? Not only the Jesuits had to deal with the Imam, but the Ethiopian Orthodox Church was not converting to Roman Catholicism. Go figure. They weren't trying to do all that. They weren't for all that. Yeah, we already got enough. We got enough. And so the Ottoman Empire expanded after the almost collapse of the Christian side and almost collapse of the Adal Sultanate. The Ottomans came in. Yeah, the Ottoman Empire, the regional superpower, which had supported Ahmad's advance into Christian highlands, had meanwhile became more directly involved in the area. Yeah, they let the Imam do their dirty work, and then here they come. Here they come. They coming in. 5 days after the Jesuit arrival at the coast to force to I'm sorry, 5 days after the Jesuit arrival at the coast, a force of 3,000 well-armed Turkish troops seized the port of Massawa, which they were to control for the next 300 years. The little Jesuit priest came in there, thought everything was good and everything was cool. They was going to be able to set up shop. And here come 3,000 Ottoman warriors. And they held that spot for 300 years. That's crazy. That's wild. And the thing is, it's like we have to realize that, yeah, they may have some similar views or whatever, but the thing is, they're not for us. You see what I'm saying? And so they were there for 300 years. They had the power of trade in their hands, right? They had it all. What can you say to them? What can you do to them? It wasn't gonna be until say the 1700s and the rise and fall of Gondar when Ethiopia would start to wake up, right? In my opinion. And so when we talk about Ethiopia in the 16th century, before I get to this question, when we talk about Ethiopia in the 16th century, remember this: it was never just a local story. It was part of a global conquest between Christianity and Islam, between two local kings and global empires, between survival and conquest, right? And so somebody had a question or concern: why the Red Sea? Why the Red Sea? Why was that location so important? And so, fortunately, I got, according to Bates Davis's Lost Cities of Africa, chapter 6, the traders of the Indian Ocean. Matter of fact, somebody asked me about, I forgot the fam's name, asked about some of the seaports of Axum. And I think I felt it was kind of fitting to kind of highlight some of that. So now he talks about Sheba's cities, right? Voyaging eastward in one of the earliest of the Portuguese fleets to India, Duarte Barbosa saw the people of East Africa seaboard were great sellers of gold, ivory, and wax. The Portuguese saw when they got to East Africa, when they got to Ethiopia, trade was already happening. People was already making money, right? And so the merchants of the Indian kingdom of Cambay, to whom they sold the goods, found them making great profits with this trade, and thus on one side as on the other, they was making money both ways. To seize these profits and control the trade that yielded them would become the great forward element in Portuguese maritime endeavor. They saw money. They was making money hand over fist. They was making the money above the table, under the table. Even everybody was making money, and Portugal wanted it. So that's why they wanted the Red Sea. So though new to the Portuguese in the 1500s, this trade was a long of antiquity. They always was doing this. Egyptians of the early and middle kingdoms and middle dynasties had sent to Punt. Of course, we talked about Queen Hatshepsut and her expeditions to Punt. And so 2,500 years before the Portuguese voyage, the natives of Hiram, the king of Tyre, had brought gold from Ophir, and Ophir, if almost certainly the southern tip of Arabia. So that's why they had connections to Asia. They had connections to Africa, to Yemen, to Kenya, to Somalia, and the smallest house has at least one or two cisterns, and the pools are deep, built at a distance from one another, and and because of the hard tiles, the spotless plaster, and the clean floors are free of any stench and obnoxious odor. They had bathrooms too. They had big houses and bathrooms, and the Portuguese wanted that. They wanted that. All right. So, yeah, they wanted to get a little bit of that money, if not all of it. But the Ottoman Empire went on and intercepted, right? And so, yeah, if you want to know more about that, I do have a video on that, on the Traders of the Indian Ocean. Check it out. But it was about power. Okay. Money and power. That's what it was about. And so this was a struggle between Imams, kings, and the Ottoman seizure of Massawa, the Red Sea struggle for Ethiopia. So check out the video. And if this resonates with you, let me know. Okay. Let me know. Type in, if you enjoyed this, type in power. Right on. Type in power in the chat. You see what I'm saying? Let me know. Let me know. And so this, and remember, history is not just the past in a sense, it is a key to our spiritual and cultural future. You see what I'm saying? So check out the video. We just got through talking about Imams, kings, and the Ottoman seizure of Massawa, the Red Sea struggle for Ethiopia. This is the King Cam Ujumbe podcast, and Ujumbe means message. And today's message is money and power, right? Yeah. If you want to know more about the Zagwe dynasty, I got you. I got a video for that. And if you want to catch up on our Ethiopia Sacred Ark series, I got a playlist for you. But yeah, this is our series. We're working on Ethiopia, Kemet, and Kush, the unified sacred ark. And if you want to learn more about Ethiopia, Kemet, and Kush, like and subscribe. See what I'm saying? Yeah, let's learn together. And so we just got to deal with Pillar 1, Ethiopia, the source and the sanctuary. Pillar 2 is Kemet. Pillar 3 is Kush and Nubia. Pillar 4 is the hidden code, spiritual science, symbols, and the esoteric legacy of Africa. Now, I got to get you. I got to get the books. And if you're interested in the books, the affiliate links are in the description. But the Feta Nagast is good. The Kebra Nagast, Queen of Sheba and her only son Menelik, by E.A. Wallace Budge. The Book of Mysteries, the Heaven and the Earth. And shout out to Baba Yahya Shabaka. He told me about this book, the Africans who wrote the Bible. Okay, check it out. And here's the book that we're into. We're going to get into chapter 7, the rise and fall. Let me see. Let me get to it. The rise and fall of Gondar. So for those who are reading, check it out. We're going to be into chapter 7, the rise and fall of Gondar. We're going to go into the Falashas, the foundation of the city, the palaces. We're going to talk about the councils and economic and religious life. We're going to get into that in about another week or so. This is the book. The affiliate link is in the description. And for the fam, this is my new book, The Crusades and Jihad in East Africa, Religious Conflicts and Their Impact, by yours truly. Check it out. And we have a bonus episode. Yes, we do. We got a bonus episode coming up thanks to the Ujumbe membership. We got it. The Scorpion King, Nubian origins of Egypt's first pharaoh. Yep. Yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into King Narmer. We're going to get into the South where it all began. And so get ready. I'm excited about that. So we're going to talk, the bonus episode is going to come soon. The Scorpion King, Nubian origins of Egypt's first pharaoh. Yep. Guess who's coming back? Kemetic Nation returns. And I'm going to let them cook, because guess what? They got some Kemetic science. They got some symbolism to break down to the fam. And I think one of the brothers got a good book. I think Swipe Cilantro has a new book. You know what I'm saying? I'm excited about it. It's always good for the fam to not just teach, but not only learn, but to apply. It's one thing. See, what happens is we as a people, we're so used to sitting and getting, and yeah, that's great information, but what are you going to do with it? So the Kemetic Nation, they're going to come back and hang with us in a few weeks. So, and shout out to the Ujumbe members. This shout out to Abina Scott, Brother Mo, and Brother Isu of One Voice Africa. I really appreciate them and their support and their insight and input. So join the membership, because they get the videos first, they get the input first, and they also have some influence as to they share their ideas as to what our lives should be like, what our next episodes would be like. So join the membership. It has its benefits, right? So we just got to talk about the rise of Imams, the king's response, betrayals, the Ottoman seizure of Massawa, legacy of the struggle. If you like the content, share with somebody that may enjoy it. Do not just share with anybody that may or may not like it. Share with somebody that you know that will enjoy it, and share it on Facebook, right? So once again, this is the King Cam Ujumbe podcast, the Ujumbe Means Message. We just got to talk about Imams, kings, and the Ottoman seizure of Massawa, the Red Sea struggle for Ethiopia. Once again, if you want to know more about the Zagwe dynasty, I got you. And if you want to catch up on our Ethiopian Sacred Arc series, got the playlist. All right. So once again, I hope all is well with you wherever you are. Yeah, we got another live series coming up, and I think you'll like it. I left that book downstairs, but yeah, we have a new book that we're gonna have a book discussion next time. I'm going to bring it out again. It's an African history of Africa by Sister Badawi. So let's get ready. So this is the King Cam Ujumbe podcast, and I will talk to you later.